ability to recognize voice over telephone and recognize words and start recording it and stuff. I don't necessarily think that the government should keep those things a secret. I mean, I'm sure they could keep them a secret as long as possible, but if they become kind of general public knowledge, as this seems to be, it seems like they should release, yes, we have this technology, we're not going to tell you how or where or when we're implementing it, for, our own purposes, because that would jeopardize investigations. But I think that the American people should know the capabilities of their government.
Kind of like the equivalent of calling a customer service line and hearing this call may be recorded for...
Yeah, exactly.
So that the possibility is out there that you might be listened to.
Yeah, like, hey everybody, we have the ability to get your address from, your cell phone, something like that.
Well, how far do you think that this will go in the future? I mean, how far is enough? I mean, as technology goes on more and more advanced, then spying possibilities are also infinite.
Well, it really is kind of an infinite plane, because technology is progressing so fast that, I mean, I don't even know probably half of what's available currently, but I mean, I know that there's the ability to look from a satellite down to basically almost a microscopic level.
So I mean, you can read a newspaper from orbit. It's crazy.
Like you can, I mean, you can get pictures of retinas, and I mean, maybe you can do retina scans from space. Like, I mean, you can track people. Like, I mean, there's all sorts of crazy things that can, or might be able to be done in the near future.
So, how comfortable do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't have any reason to feel uncomfortable about it, but I just feel like it's just not right that people shouldn't be subjected to that. It's like, they should be given the right to be,
privacy.
I mean, yeah, exactly, thank you.
It's rather Orwellian. I mean, that is the biggest fear, when the state has complete access to information and everything that you do. It definitely raises some concerns.
Yeah, but I mean, in their defense of doing all this stuff, I mean, it is kind of for the greater good, because they're going about it with the mentality of, oh, we want to be able to track all these, dangerous people, or the people that we think might be dangerous, so that we can, eliminate any threats that might pop up. It's just a matter of, whether their good intentions get kind of muddled up by, the people in the middle that are actually implementing all these
Right. I
things.
think the whole idea is pretty romantic. Everyone give up your civil liberties so that the entire United States can benefit and we can be safe and happy together. But I do think that, like you said, that the execution gets muddled up, and so many people's rights get infringed upon the way on the way that it...
Well, I mean, it's just inherent with the kind of broad nature of these technologies and the policies written to govern them. Because, say you have some crazy technology that can look down from space and act as one of those, millimeter wave scanning technologies in the airport where they can, like, X-ray your clothing. There could be some government agent that, he has legislation and policies that prevent him from doing specific things. But, what's to say he can't just be like, oh, and, disregard a policy really quick. I mean, it's those kinds of instances where a specific person deviates from a policy or interprets something to their benefit that really makes the general policy suffer.
But why are our laws being written in a way that they're open for interpretation? You have to have... They need to be more... You have to have some flexibility in the law, but is there too much flexibility right now? I think that's one of the concerns.
Exactly. And, last September, federal judges ruled that 2 provisions of the Patriot Act were unconstitutional because they violated the unreasonable search and seizure that is so inherent in the Fourth Amendment. And so do you think that the government should be able to interpret the laws as they see fit?
They do. It's judicial review. That's the system that's been in place for it. And then the court's serving its purpose right now. Although you have to ask, if these laws were unconstitutional in the first place and very blatant, to the point that a 4th grader could say, oh, that's unconstitutional, why weren't they proposed through constitutional amendment instead of pushed through Congress? I don't have a problem with the Patriot Act in principle, but I do have a problem with anything that's going to usurp the Constitution, which is supposed to be the supreme law of the U.S. It's going to usurp that through Congress and not through the amendment process, which has to go through the executive and the legislative and a referendum too, right?
Yeah. Well, I think kind of back to the question whether or not the government should or should not be able to interpret, I mean, it very much should, because, I mean, any person, you or I, could go into a court of law and bring up a lawsuit or a court case against or for something, and we can bring in an attorney or do it ourselves and say, this is how we see it, and then leave it up to the judge to say, well, is that relevant based on previous occurrences?
We just need to make sure it's the right people interpreting the law, not law enforcement officials, but judges.
And that's most of the countries are set up with a civil system where laws are really strictly defined, and that's what most of Europe is, most of the rest of the world. And one of the things about the American system is that laws are much more broad, so that they can be applied in a variety of situations, and then they can be applied in many different ways, and it's up to kind of the judges and the lawyers in that case to change
Well, it's
them.
up to the judges and lawyers, but people in positions of power often abuse their power, and especially in a system so shrouded in secrecy, how can we as citizens really prevent this from happening?
Don't vote for the people that do it.
How can
That's the
so a
built-in-
lot of the people who do it are appointed, not voted.
But the
Voted
people
in.
who appoint them are elected.
What do you?
Well, if George Bush appoints John Ashcroft as Attorney General, and we don't like the way John Ashcroft deals with his interpretation of the Patriot Act, then don't vote for George Bush or the Republican Party when they're up for re-election.
Well, I think, though, with that, a lot of it comes down to voting for the lesser of two evils, and sometimes on either side you're kind of stuck in a rut, because both sides may have someone that you're like, well, they're going to appoint someone that I really don't agree with either way. So you kind of get...
Who do I disagree with less?
Yeah, you kind of get shoehorned into just accepting someone that you don't agree with at all.
Right, and I think the reason that, a candidate that is going to come out and say, I'm entirely against something like this, well, going back a few years when it was being implemented and everything, the reason that we don't see that as much is because what the Patriot Act and, certain these kind of concepts set up is a really just manichaeist view of the world, which is like good versus evil. You're either with us or you're with them. You're a terrorist or you like America. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't like America, or I'm sorry, this is not coming out right. If you don't support this act, then you're a terrorist, that sort of thing. And so that's why you're not going to see as many people being vocal in that sense.
Well, at what point do you think that interpretation can become counterproductive and, in fact, hurtful?
Well, when interpretation is necessary for a law, I mean, if you can't just read the law and know what it says, it has to be interpreted, then there's something wrong. I mean, you should be able to read a law or an act and say, yeah, that's pretty darn self-explanatory, and then, but someone should be able to come in and say, well, it is, but. It's not like you should go, okay, someone tell me what this is supposed to be. Yeah.
There should be clear intent that anyone reading the law...
All right, sorry, I got to cut you off right there. We are ending our show for tonight, unfortunately, but thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Nancy Chin, and thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, guys. And we'll have a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you again next week.
Yes, we will.
I mean, next week.
At least we hope we will.
By the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts.